So if you're a young man and you've watched YouTube recently, I'm sure you've seen videos that tell you if you're working a 9 to 5, you're never going to reach your goals or your dreams, that you're not ambitious enough. But I'm here to tell you that a 9 to 5 can offer you some stability, freedom, and peace of mind that just isn't compared to when it comes to entrepreneurship. I'm sure some of those things are true about entrepreneurship, but speaking from somebody who has a 9 to 5 and is really content with where they are in life right now. Hopefully this can give you some words of wisdom and hope for the future as maybe you're in a 9 to 5 or you're facing the choice between working a 9 to 5 and going down the path of entrepreneurship. So in this video, I'm going to dispel some myths about a 9 to 5 and also give you some of my life experience as somebody working a 9 to 5 for the past 3 years as a data analyst and how that's kind of set me up for the life that I've always wanted. So first we're going to start off with some of the lessons that I've learned working a 9 to 5, and then I'll dispel some of the common myths or questions that you might have about working a 9 to 5 versus entrepreneurship. So first is that stability is super underrated when it comes to a 9 to 5. I'm someone who does well when they have a kind of a set schedule in terms of, when I go to bed, when I wake up, when I'm working, when I'm not, when I'm enjoying my life. And a 9 to 5 offers you a great deal of that. You get a consistent paycheck on a scheduled timeline. Oftentimes, if you're a salaried position, you're going to have the same paycheck every time until you get a raise or a promotion. You're going to get predictable benefits. You're going to get health insurance, which with somebody with a newborn baby, that's super important. And like I said, you're going to get those predictable hours. You know you're going to be working your 8 hours or so every single day. And at least for me, it can be different times, but it's always the same time. I work 8 to 4. And this is a foundation for kind of how I build my life and how I schedule the rest of things around what I'm doing and work. So I know every Monday through Friday I'm working 8 to 4 unless I'm using PTO, which is another great thing. You get paid for not working. You get vacation time. A lot of companies offer pretty good benefits when it comes to vacation time. But just having the stability in your life is super underrated. When it comes to entrepreneurship, you're pretty much on all the time. You have to be working all the time to make that work, especially when it comes to the start. You might be working, 14-hour days just to get things going and get things off the ground. I mean, it makes sense when you're an entrepreneur. Maybe it's just you. You're wearing every single hat within your company or whatever you're working on. When you're working your 9 to 5, typically your role is clearly defined and you know exactly what you're going to be doing. The second lesson is that you can build wealth as somebody in a 9 to 5. I hear a lot that, college is a scam, you can't pay it off. Well, if you go to a state school, and by state school I mean a school in the state that you live in that's a public school, it's not that expensive to get a bachelor's degree. If you get into something that's worthwhile where you can get, a decent paying job afterwards, something in STEM, something in computer science, nursing degree, anything like that with, almost a guaranteed job at the back end of that. I'm not talking about, no offense to anybody who majored in business, but, that's not really a super, super raw degree that, a bunch of people are after because a lot of people get them. There's a lot of people with degrees in economics or finance, and it just doesn't make you that marketable just to have that degree. Now, I'm never going to say you should just rely on your degree. You should always have something outside of the degree, whether it's an internship, research position, self-projects, things like that. But just having a degree in something marketable can get you a decent paying job right out of college. I immediately, out of college, am making in the upper 10th percentile of where I live in terms of pay. So it's definitely possible to get a decent paying job right out of college, working a 9 to 5. And by doing things like budgeting, investing, and focusing on your career growth early on. By focusing on career growth, really I just mean putting in the work and the effort to learn at your job and become better so that you can eventually get a raise, which is exactly what happened to me. I started off about $75,000 and now I'm close to $90,000 2.5 years in. And just based on this alone, and as well as my wife's income, which she makes close to the same as a nurse, that led to us buying our first home. It led to us paying off my student loans. It led to us being able to afford our cars, which we're working on paying off now, and working on paying off my wife's student loans. But we're getting there. And sure, it's not like we're just crushing it and able to pay off everything all at once, but we have money left over every single month where we can put that onto our debt and get those paid off as soon as possible. And also, I made the smart choice at 18 to start investing, and that allowed us also to grow some of our retirement accounts as well as gain a little bit of extra money to help pay off those debts. So if you want a video on budgeting or investing, let me know down in the comments and I can make one on that too. But it's definitely possible to build wealth with a 9 to 5, especially if you're looking to get married or if you're thinking about getting married, or you want to do that in the future. It's great to have 2 incomes to be able to afford a house and pay off debts and things like that. One of the biggest ones is that 9 to 5s are soul crushing. And while they absolutely can, I know some people that are just pushing the buttons at their job. They're waking up every day, kind of working through like a zombie. And I'm not saying that's not going to happen to everybody because burnout is real. But the fact of the matter is that you can be passionate about an industry. And while I'm not passionate about health insurance, which I work in, I am passionate about improving the lives of people and seeing that benefit on the back end. And that's something I'm able to do working in population health. I'm able to work on programs and things that help people feel better and pay less for healthcare, which is ultimately what my organization is trying to do. It's absolutely possible to find something that's not soul crushing. And maybe you find value in, something like finance where you can maybe help people reach their financial goals. Or maybe you find value in finding people a great car and you want to be a car salesman. It's absolutely possible to do that in a 9 to 5 and find a job that suits, your values. Don't believe the myth that every 9 to 5 job is absolutely soul crushing. You can also find jobs where, you get to work with people that you really enjoy to work with. Sometimes you don't get that luxury, but I'm in a role like that where I have people that I can trust. At least in terms of work. I don't know about personal life because I try not to get into that with coworkers. But you can. It's really all up to you. Another thing is that I've known people who've started their own businesses and done that route of entrepreneurship. And I can't tell you the amount of stress that I've seen some of them go through in certain periods of that. If you can't find customers in a certain time of year, you're not going to be able to pay your bills unless you have, some money saved up. It's not an easy or a shortcut path to wealth. It's a stressful, it's a less stable, and oftentimes slower to pay off path than a 9 to 5. Now, sure, you're building something for yourself. That's something you own. Eventually, you can hire out and own all that and really cut back on those hours and maybe have more of a stable income. But there are real trade-offs to going the entrepreneurship path, and it's not for everybody. Whereas in a 9 to 5, sure, it can be stressful. But it's not the same kind of stress where you're worrying about where your next paycheck's going to come from. Because as long as you're having that job and you're coming into work, you're going to be paid. And also, the payoff is almost immediate. You get paid to learn on the job. And that's a pretty cool thing about a 9 to 5. Especially earlier off in your career, getting paid to learn is one of the biggest hacks that you can possibly have. Oftentimes, in a 9 to 5, you can use company resources to advance in your career and get paid more in the future. One thing I've experienced with this is that at my job, I have pretty much the entire world, in terms of tech, that I can learn and utilize and take courses on for free that I can put on my resume after the fact. And whether that's to advance in the same company that I'm in now or advance in a different company, I can do that. And I can do that for free, and I get paid to do that learning, which is absolutely amazing. And that's one of the big benefits of a 9 to 5. And finally, the last lesson I have before I get into some myths or questions that you might have is that you can still be creative in a 9 to 5. Sure, in side hustles, hobbies, and content creation, things like that, you can be very creative. You can do whatever you like. You can go into any industry or domain, and you can do whatever you want. But in a 9 to 5, especially if you're in the right role where you have some autonomy or people trust you, your managers trust you, your bosses trust you, you can be creative. And oftentimes you can bring unique ideas on how you can solve problems within your own company. One way I do this at my 9 to 5 is that we have a little bit of discretion on what kind of tech we want to use to build the tool that I'm currently building as a data analyst. Right now we're using R, but I have a lot of creative ability on kind of how I want to build that tool. There's a lot of different ways that you can code something to do what you want it to do, and I almost have full autonomy on that. As long as I'm producing results and things that work and things that are clear and things that other people can also fit into their workflows, then that's absolutely something I can do. Now, sure, that might not be the first thing that comes to mind when you think of creativity, but for me, that is. I don't want to be told how I have to work. I do like having clear direction on, what kind of results we want, but then I get to figure out how I want to achieve those results. And to me, that's being creative. And I also have creative outlets outside of work, like what you're listening to right now. So don't forget, outside of your 9 to 5, you got to have outlets that allow you to be creative. But now let's get into some maybe myths or questions that you might have. One is, am I settling if I work a 9 to 5? Well, if the rest of this video is any indication, no, I don't think you're settling. And there's plenty of high-paying 9 to 5 jobs where you're making $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year, especially in big cities. I personally live in the middle of nowhere, so I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. Next, will I be stuck in doing something that I hate forever? The answer is no. Even if you're not liking your current 9 to 5 job, like I said, you can learn skills on the job, especially if you're in the right type of role or right type of company, where you can learn skills where you can advance your career and even leave your current company, and you get paid to do so. So definitely, you're not going to be stuck. And you can always switch jobs. Another common one is a 9 to 5 just trading time for money? At its core, yes. But honestly, why is that such a bad thing? As an entrepreneur, at first, you're definitely going to be trading a lot of your time and probably for not very much money, especially to start. Now, eventually, sure, you have something you own or you can hire out. You're not trading your time for money. But in a 9 to 5, you can do things like investing in the S&P 500 or other stocks or investment vehicles where you're not trading your time for money. You're trading your money for time back in your future. And a 9 to 5 is a great outlet to do that because that's what I do. So how do you grow financially without starting a business? Well, like I said in my last point, by budgeting smartly and investing. Finding a comfort zone where you're making a certain amount of money and you're living on less than those means. That's one of the big ways. You can't just get your 9 to 5 and then immediately go, okay, get in a car, get in an apartment, I'm buying new clothes, I'm buying stuff for my girlfriend all the time, or buying stuff for my parents. And then you look at the end of the day and you are completely broke until your next paycheck. You need to live below what you make in terms of rent, car, food, if you're able to do so, and save some of that money, invest some of that money, pay off your debts, and that's going to allow you to afford the luxury of living the life that you've wanted and growing financially. If you're not living on less than you make, though, and you're in debt over your head and you're living paycheck to paycheck, yeah, you're going to be stuck in that 9 to 5, and you're not going to have many options out of that because you have to have that job to pay off all the things that you owe on. But if you're behind on your debt and you're living paycheck to paycheck and you can't seem to get out of that, sure, you're going to feel stuck in your 9 to 5, and sure, you're not going to grow financially. But if you live on less than you make and you're able to save, invest, and pay off debt, then you're going to be able to build the life that you've always wanted with a 9 to 5. Now, finally, how do you avoid burnout in a traditional job? Well, I made an entire video on exactly that, so check it out. I think it'll really help you out. Other than that, thanks for watching, and enjoy the rest of the gameplay. Armor off on the top. Just jumped off. Right here, hurt. So hurt. Thank you. Oh, right here. Another squad. I need heavy ammo. Up top with us? Oh, yeah. We drop down. They're below us. Alright, I'm gonna take this triple dig. I'm dropping a whole bunch of heavy attachments, like fully kitted. He's hurting. Right here. I think we actually could. Armor off over there. Nice. Alright, just them. Yeah, he went back down. He's hurt. I'm on top. Yep. Oh, on top of me. He's armor off. He's so hurt. He's over here. No, he's not. Up top of me. He's so hurt, dude. Right here. Damn it. That guy was one. One's looting me. Mirage. I think it's one up. Yeah. Never a doubt.